Stronger, stronger together. Stronger, stronger together.
Well, I'm out on the streets again. This little shivering girl here is Ember. And I'm saying to you now that I hope Ember is my new dog, because right after we wrap this, I'm off to the vet. She's not acting right, and she's only a 7-week-old puppy, so we'll see what's happened with Miss Ember. But the road to Ember was, well, a horrible one, because I had Pippa, and Pippa passed away. And she passed away right behind me, down there, on that corner, a corner I still haven't walked across. When we had the legal right-of-way, the light had changed, walk sign had said walk. I walked out with Pippa, a car turned left and didn't see us, ran her over and killed her on the spot. Now, you all know me, and when that sort of thing happens, I can't just let it happen to me and not understand why. Why did this happen? What I found out was in America, 12 people a day are killed on crosswalks. Over 4,000 a year. If I told you Al-Qaeda killed 12 people a day, you'd go jihad on somebody. A couple 100,000 people a year are injured. Of those, a large portion are seniors over the age of 70 and kids. I wanted to understand how sidewalks, what regulates them, what are the rules, how does a city decide? So I thought I'd talk to our city here in Long Beach, the person that handles public safety and that sort of thing here. I'm going to let him, as I do all my guests, introduce himself so I don't murder their names.
Hi, I'm Eric Windstrand, and I'm the city traffic engineer for the city of Long Beach.
How does the city decide how to put a crosswalk up and what it should consist of other than just yellow lines?
Well, it's a good question. There's different types of crosswalks. Every intersection is legally a crosswalk, whether it's marked or not. And I think where we have traffic signals, where we have high volumes of pedestrian crossing, and where we have school routes, we look at marking those crosswalks. Most of the intersections in the city that I have marked crosswalks do have just the parallel lines across them. What we've been doing recently is upgrading those crosswalks to continental style crosswalks. They look more like a piano style, and they're much more visible to drivers.
Now let me ask you, why, in God's green earth, and I don't want to sabotage you, but you probably asked this too, why is it a good idea to ever mix pedestrians and cars? They don't mix, we're dying every day.
Well, I guess there's, in our traffic system, we're trying to accommodate all modes of traffic, and you can't really have a completely separated network. One network for pedestrians, one network for cars.
But you could have at every street that has more than 2 lanes of traffic in one direction a rule that says the sidewalks have to be, at major intersections, have to be either elevated, have barriers that come up, or have something to at least protect people. Because, you know, at the more and more research I've done, they now have the solar reflectors that are helping. But everybody says that no one, because of, is it budget? We just don't have the money to build these sorts of structures, or why can't we at least take an effort to get pedestrians away from cars?
And I think it's a good question, and budget is one constraint, but it's also what type of place do we want to live in? You know, you take a city, you know, Las Vegas, the Strip.
I think elevated sidewalks would be cool myself. Well, I think they'd be great.
They'd be expensive, and I think that really reduces the street level, the activity. If you want to have a business district, you want to have walkable communities. If you expect people
But what about just at the intersections, where where people get hit the most? You know, like at an intersection where there's like that, 7th and Temple, where there's, you know, all this traffic every morning and bad lighting with the sun, and you know, it's obvious something needs to be done there. What about places like I'm not saying like all along, but what about just elevating things or putting up barriers at very busy sidewalks?
Right, and I think there's still a challenge with budget, and I think what we try and do is that how we design the streets, we design them so that people obey the rules, so that we want to make sure that there's...
Well, they're not.
I know, exactly, and that's one of the challenges. So I think that's why we are going to be upgrading all crosswalks, all marked crosswalks, to this new continental style to improve the visibility.
How much money would it take to stop people dying on the streets?
Well, I don't know if I can put a dollar amount on that. I think
just for our city, though. I mean, at the world.
Yeah, and I don't even know if I could do that. I think,
but billions.
What it takes is people paying attention. A big part of this.
So automated cars.
automated cars will be a help. I think whenever you have, human decisions, there's a
she
chance
just didn't see me. The sun
there's a
was in
chance
her
for
eyes.
human
Bam.
error. Yeah, whether it's sun in the eyes, texting, talking on the phone, or just not paying attention. I think that what we try and do as engineers and with the city, we're trying to make sure that people, using as many tools as we can within our, toolbox.
Are you frustrated with your toolbox?
I think we have a lot of tools out there. I don't think we've exhausted everything. I think being in Long Beach, I see there's areas where we can improve, and that's why we're trying to work on that. Pedestrian safety is a key priority for us at the city. Long Beach has said they're the most bicycle-friendly city in the country. We want to make sure we're putting the same emphasis on pedestrian safety as well.
Well, as someone who's been run over by a car, it's no fun. I stood a 15% chance of living, an 85% chance of dying. My dog did die. We have a pedestrian problem in America. We need to help people like him do his job by opening up some funding and getting us away from cars. It's killing us. Okay, I'm littered with dogs. This is Sammy, Esteban's dog, my roommate, DJ Foreplay, his dog. And this is Ember. She's back from the vet. I went to the vet in between talking to that gentleman and now. And she's a little vitamin problem, a little anemic, but we've got some stuff that should fix her right up. Now, oh, excuse me, I'm sorry. She didn't like me to move her. What I learned from talking with the safety manager of our city was that our city and our bureaucrats are so bound. It's really why Donald Trump made an impact in 2015 and 2016. Because he actually said stuff, and he actually acted like stuff could get done. He acted like we could build a wall with Mexico that Mexico would pay for. Well, of course, we can't and it won't happen, but he acted like we could. He acted like we could actually stop terrorism by stopping all Muslim immigration, and that stopping all Muslim immigration was actually a real thing. He acted like we could do that, so people thought that we could. The fact of the matter is that if we had the willpower in this country for pedestrian safety, he would have no choice but to make streets safer because we'd be demanding it. But we're not. Now, I didn't want to get out there and yell and scream at him and take out my rage and anger on him. His hands are tied. But don't you all care that 12 to 13 people a day are killed on sidewalks? That each of you either has a story or knows somebody that has a story about either being struck on a sidewalk or nearly being run over. Every single one of you probably has a story. President Obama got into trouble at his State of the Union address with the pundits or whomever because he actually tried to inspire us. He actually tried to remind us that we can get things done, that we can be better, that we're actually a great nation, that we're the strongest fighting force in the world, that some thugs on the back of pickup trucks with rocket launchers pose no threat to our sovereignty whatsoever. And he got criticism for saying that, we can get things done, have a vote, let's do it. And that's my plea to you all in every community that you're in. You know what? I want to start a movement called Pippa's Law. And it says that on any street that has more than 2 lanes of traffic moving in one direction, pedestrians either have to be elevated, go under, or have a barrier of some kind at a major intersection. It doesn't have to be every intersection. It could be every quarter mile or whatever. But on any major street, look at Las Vegas. Didn't someone just run into a crowd and kill one person? Why are pedestrians at the same place where someone can do that? People, we can do better than this. All I heard him say is tell me why we can't separate cars and people. And I'm telling you, we can. How do I know? Because we can go to frickin' Mars. We can separate cars and people. 12 to 15 Americans don't have to die every single day. Every other hour, someone doesn't have to die on a crosswalk. And 250 plus injured every day. Every year, 250,000 people don't need to be in hospitals because their sole offense was crossing the street. Pippa did not need to die. That accident should not have happened. It is the city's fault that it occurred. I was on a perfectly marked sidewalk with a perfectly legal light. This woman couldn't see me. Well, if there was a barrier between us, or if I was going over or under the street, it wouldn't have mattered about that woman. So, as grateful as I am to him for his time and his explanation about how really it's budget and city leaders that determine whether it's just a painted yellow line or it's got some solar reflectors or it's got the cross things on it that make it more visible, none of that keeps the car away from you. We can do better when it comes to pedestrian safety. I wrote about it at the Huffington Post. It's at my website. I hope every one of you is safer. I hope if you walk your dog, you never let it lead ahead of you on a sidewalk ever. Please stop that today. If you cross the street tomorrow with your dog, make sure it's at your side. If it can't be at your side, carry it. If you can't carry it, don't cross the street. Don't be me. You don't want this to happen to you. Be safe. Wear bright clothing when you're walking your pets. And when you're on a crosswalk, whether it's you alone, or you and a pet, or you and a baby, or you and your grandmother, remember you're at war. And I mean this. When you are on a major crosswalk, on a major street, remember it is you against them, and they sometimes don't want to stop. Please take this issue seriously. It kills more people every year than ISIS and Al-Qaeda combined. And it killed my Pippa. And it will never kill her. She will never, ever walk across a 4-lane street, ever. I will carry her, unless her daddy was a Rottweiler or something. But other than that, she will always be carried, because I'm never giving someone the chance to run my dog. You can hit me, but you're not going to hit my dog ever again. Just ever. Hey, it's Karel, and welcome to Life in Segments Pop-Up Therapy. It's one of the newer segments for the new year that we're doing here on Karel Life in Segments. Now, this little marvelous sleeping thing is Miss Ember. And Ember is the newest addition to Park Howard, and I can't put her down. And I don't want to put her down, so I'm not gonna. Now, let me tell you something. I don't say what I'm about to say lightly, and nor do I share it with you for any other reason than hopefully you'll get something out of it. I know on talk radio, on Free Speech TV, or any other network that I'm on, when I do a pet topic, it always goes through the roof. We love our pets, and I am one of you. I have dogs and a cat. This is my little dog area here. There's a sand cast of my other Chow Chow before Attila, which was Owen. There's the painting that Ron Keyes did of the late Pippa and Attila. There's Angel over there, Allie over there, some of my other dogs. Now, I sit here, and again, I don't say this lightly, and I don't say it to insult any of you soldiers out there, but I sit here with post-traumatic stress disorder. And it's very, very powerful. Now, grief, I've handled. My husband died in front of me. My mother, I lost a generation to AIDS. Grief has been a part of my life. But never more was it intensified than with the loss of Pippa. When I stepped off of that curb and we entered that sidewalk and that lady hit us and I saw Pippa die, well, I saw her get run over. And then in the fog that is my memory, I scooped her up and put her in my arms. And blood went everywhere on my pants and my shirt, and her little leg twitched, and then there was nothing, and just blood. And as I screamed in the middle of that intersection, all I could scream was, "This isn't happening." That's all I could scream. That's all I could say. Because in my mind, at that moment, I just could not process that this was occurring to me. How on earth could this be happening to me? I had obeyed the street light. I'd made this walk 1,000,000 times. How could that little bundle of love be so gone so quickly? So that happened, and what do you do with it? My friends rallied. They all came to Park Howard. We used whatever segments we could for the show that were already shot because I was in no way to shoot them. And they waited. They waited for me to get better. But getting better is a long process, and I'm not out of it. A few months passed, and I couldn't help but feel the void that Pippa had left. And all the dog has when they die to offer as a last will and testament is their space. It's all they have left to give to some other animal, the space that they occupied. It's their greatest gift. And I knew over Christmas and New Year's that Pippa wouldn't want another little girl shivering in a shelter somewhere. She wouldn't want another little girl unloved when I had so much love to give. But when is the right time? When do you get another pet? Do you get another pet? How do you deal with the fact that you'll be shopping for the new one and all of a sudden just burst out crying because you feel so horribly guilty? Sometimes it helps to talk to someone. And there are people out there who specialize in counseling you after the loss of a pet. And with a loss so traumatic, one like I had with the post-traumatic stress, I wanted to talk to someone about the enormity, because everybody downplays in your world, and you know it. When one of your pets die, everyone around you says, well, you know, I'm sorry or whatever, but they don't act like it's a person. And to you, it feels like you've lost your best friend. And so today, we are talking with a pet grief counselor, and I always let my guests introduce themselves so I never get their name wrong.
Okay.
Your name is?
My name is Dr. Sandra Grossman.
And Dr. Sandra Grossman, one of her specialties is pet loss and grief loss. Now, Sandra, I'm sure, I don't want to say you've heard my story 1,000 times. I doubt there's 1,000 people that have had quite as horrific, but there are many, many ways that people experience the loss of a pet. Whether it's cancer, my Allie died right there. A vet gave her shot, you know. Y'all see Greta here. She's like ready for her close-up. Whether it was, you know, a loss to cancer, old age, or tragic accident, the loss is still the loss. Let's first start at the beginning. In our country and our culture, do we make allowances for people in their grief when it comes to their pets?
You know, it's getting better, but it's not anywhere where it needs to be. You know, to me, I just can't understand, and I don't think I ever will, why we separate. Why is love for a two-legged soul any different than love for a four-legged soul? Why is loss for a two-legged soul any different than loss for a four-legged soul?
There are people in my life that if they died, I would not cry like I did over Pippa. I'm telling you that right now. And so because we go into it with people discounting our grief, we almost add to it by telling ourselves we shouldn't be feeling this bad, or we shouldn't be crying this way.
Right. You know, and it's so true, but it's not true. I mean, you absolutely have a right to feel. I mean, we were just talking about it, and this little girl comes into, despite her beginning, comes into here with so much unconditional love, so ready to love, and unfortunately, a lot of humans aren't like that, and so that's why the bond gets so strong so quickly.
You know, she was perhaps born on the day that Pippa died.
Wow.
Somewhere between November 18th and November 28th. My mother's birthday, November 28th. My mom passed as well. And someone had thrown her mother into a fireplace pregnant in an old building. She had the puppies in the sump of the fireplace and were pulled out after 3 weeks by a rescue agency. How someone can do that to something like this is beyond me. When you're grieving the loss of a pet, are there any people send you that book, The Rainbow Bridge, but it just makes you cry more? You know, they do things that they think they're helping, but it just rips your heart out. Yeah, I mean, is there any way to help a person grieve with the loss of a pet? Because as with a person, when you know what I say, the only way to help them is say, I'm sorry for your loss, and that's it. Don't say I know how you feel, because you don't.
You don't.
Don't
You
say
don't.
that, oh, don't compare, oh, I also, no. I'm sorry for your loss.
True.
Is there anything I can do to help you? That's it.
Yeah, and we even say, you know, I mean, sometimes it's hard when you say, is there anything I can do? I mean, and I'm sure you felt it too, right at the beginning. You didn't even know.
No, I told them all.
Wanted.
I said, no, there'll be
it's
nothing
like,
anyone can do for weeks. I'm going to be a really horrible person for a while. I'm going to cry all the time. I'm going to be sad. But I just got ran over. So, of course, you know, so.
Exactly.
Do you think we in our hurry-up culture give ourselves time to grieve, just period, let alone the loss of a pet? But
No. Our society is so bad with dealing with grief anyway. And then when it comes to pet loss, it's a totally disenfranchised type of loss. And like I said, it is getting better. But when you were talking about, I mean, you made a couple good points in how you help a friend. You know, how you help a friend is just being there, and sometimes not even saying a word. Like
they were all
said,
here. They came down the day Pippa died. My friend Ken got in the medicine cabinet and called my doctor and got Valium. Thank you, Ken. Thea came down. My niece Heather flew down from Seattle because she knew what Pippa meant to me. And they were all out here. And I was in there not speaking, just hugging Attila, my child that survived with me.
Yeah.
And really for 3 or 4 days, that's all I did. But I was surrounded by people. They made sure I ate.
That's important.
They made sure that I was, you know, not alone. I didn't have to speak to them. I told them I don't have the energy to, they're like, you don't have to entertain us. And yes, I was very, very lucky.
Yeah, you're lucky that you had
in that case. When Pippa died, my best friend Karen wanted me to go the next day and get a dog.
Yeah.
She's like, you are a person that needs this, you know, go. And as much as I wanted to take her advice, I couldn't cry. I couldn't even look at a dog without crying. So I thought that's not an environment to bring a dog into.
And here's the thing: our society is kind of like a replacement society. You know, what do you do when you lose your favorite car? You get in a car crash, you go get another one, or you lose a cell phone, you go get another one. And people are used to doing that, and they also, a lot of people are uncomfortable with grief.
So they don't really want to know how you're doing.
No.
And they don't really want to help because they feel powerless. They don't know what to do for you. They can't reach that part of you that hurts.
Right.
And so they just don't want to deal with it.
And so that's why they'll say, and I had the same thing when I lost, and this is how I got into all this. I lost a senior cat. And I had a friend who knew him and loved me and loved him, and I just sent out an email blast saying that he had passed, and same thing, the next morning she's like, I'm going to pick you up and we're going to go get a kitten from the shelter that looks just like him. I'm like, don't you even come on this street, you know?
Her name was originally Pepper yesterday, but she's so young that I've changed it to Ember because she was found in a fireplace and everything. But also, Pepper sounds way too much like Pippa, and I don't want to have that poke at myself should I make the mistake. I don't want to make myself cry. So I want to set myself up for success to get through the grief. So and there were dogs that looked like Pippa that were up for adoption, and I just couldn't do it. I thought, no, I'm not replacing her.
No, and you never do.
Right.
And that's the thing. And so when you were saying, is there a right time? First of all, no two people will go through loss the same way. So there's no one answer. What I tell people is it is important, like you said, to work through the grief. And then if you start to think about, you know, I may want to bring in another baby, ask yourself this question. Am I bringing in a baby with a job? And that job is to make my sadness go away. And if you're giving that pet a job, that's not fair. But if you're able to say, no, I just want to love again, and I want to help
I don't think it was that way. With me, it was like, yes, I want a dog. Attila stays on the floor, so I want one in bed with me. I like a company, lap dog sort of thing. And so I missed that.
Yeah.
And I wanted that again.
Exactly.
And so I thought, there's a dog out there that wants to love me and be by my side and be in the bed, and I want a dog to be by my side and be in the bed. So since there's one out there that wants that, and I want it too, even if it might in my brain be a little soon or something, it's not wrong because I'm not saying to myself, I'm going to find a dog that looks just like Pippa, acts just like, no, this is a unique little girl here. She's going to have her own set of problems and be her own girl.
And that's how I know we're ready.
You know, and she, however, and this morning I wake up and I have morning anxiety in my brain, you know, the ills of the world, the State of the Union address, you know, blah, blah, blah. But then also my own, you know, my brain just goes crazy. And Pippa used to lay on me and chew my toes and make me forget about that.
Yeah.
Well, she's been gone for 2 months. This morning, I didn't have all those horrible thoughts because I had someone chewing my nose.
Yeah.
You know, so I couldn't sit there and be upset or depressed about. So also I noticed with Attila, we stopped doing the longer walks of 2 miles. We were only doing shorter because he's old.
Yeah.
He's 10, I'm 50, you know, so it's like, eh. And so the young energy is going to make us walk to the beach and back and make us be more energetic. So it's not that she has a job, but it's what she can bring.
Exactly, and from everything you're saying, I mean, just the fact that you didn't want somebody to look like Pippa, that you don't expect her to act, and that's what I'm saying. When people are looking for that quote unquote replacement, which you'll never ever find, that's when I say it's wrong. You need to, and it's uncomfortable. Look, grief is hard work.
And there's no time limit. It doesn't expire. No. I have a phrase called grief tsunamis. And my friends love that.
Yeah.
Because it's like if you're going along perfectly fine with what I was in PetSmart the other day, perfectly happy buying her dog beds and things. Yeah. And right as I was checking out, this guilt suddenly came over me, like, how can you be doing this when just 2 months ago Pippa died? And I remembered you serve the living and you remember the dead.
Yeah, exactly.
You know? And so what I'm doing is serving this little living creature and giving her warmth and that I have to give.
Yeah.
You know, when Pippa got severed from me, I still had love to give.
Of course.
You know, so she will now benefit from that.
Absolutely.
But there's no time limit. If you're not, you should never let it move into clinical depression, obviously, or whatever.
Right.
But no one should say to you, well, it's been 3 weeks or it's been 2 months.
No, you know, and I often say to people, you know, I mean, if you had lost a two-legged child, nobody would
ever dare
you to, like, after a few weeks, or would say, are you going to adopt another? Yeah, you know, go adopt another child. You know,
go to Malawi.
Yeah, you know, I mean, and so.
No, they would
but
never
there
do
is no timeline. You know, grief, part of it.
And if yours manifests that you don't get another pet, then that's okay too.
That's okay too. Yeah, you know, I mean, some of my clients decide, you know what, I just want to foster, or I want to work at a shelter and help, or do some volunteer work. My associate that I work with in Orange County, she waited almost 7 years.
Yep. Also, if you're not a healthy individual, you're not going to be a healthy citizen. You're not going to be able to make rational decisions when it comes to voting. You're not going to be able to be an active part of your community. Isn't that why you watch television and listen to talk shows? So you can be a better person and be an active member of your community? Well, that means you have to deal with this and this. And guess what? We're human and we feel things. And it's okay to say, I'm hurting, I'm in pain. It's okay to say why. Because I lost my dog or my cat or my turtle or my fish or whatever, your bird, I don't care what it was. It's okay to hurt. It's okay to grieve. Just remember, you have to come out of it and come to the other side of the tunnel. And while it may not be something like this job, there's an old saying, you know, the best way to get over a man is to get another one underneath you. Well, let me tell you this. A heart that's full of love, grief doesn't have a lot of